Hey, how's everybody doing? Good to see you. Otis, good to be with you. Listen, you may have come for the beer, but I'm glad that you're willing to stay to take part in the most important election in Texas history, one that we are going to win. We're going to win this because we're going to do this together. It will not be about the candidate. It will not be about the party to which he happens to belong. It's going to be about the people of the state of Texas everywhere in every single one of the 254 counties. None more important than the one we're in right now, Harris County. This is where we bring it home. This is where we bring it home. So we have an important campaign announcement to make. This is an advancement in our technology that we are just bringing to bear for the first time today. We have one of these fancy 5-digit codes that we're going to ask everybody to text to. So we have graduated from the 18th century pen on paper, signing you up at one of these events. And we're going to ask you, I'm going to make sure that I read it so that I get it right. If you text the word Texas to 20377, Texas to 20377, your cell phone will spit back a link that will allow you to sign up to knock on doors, to meet the voters who are going to decide the outcome of this next election. Because listen, I know that we've got some great Democrats here in the House today, and I am grateful for that. I know that we have independents as well, and you all are always welcome. And the Republicans who are here, we are so glad to have you, and you're going to help us to do this. But you know what? There are also a lot of eligible non-voting Texans out there. And nowhere more so, in fact, than in Harris County. There are 7 million across this state, hundreds of thousands in Harris County. We only lost to Ted Cruz in 2018 by 216,000 votes. The margin of victory of non-voters is here in this community. If you will sign up by texting Texas to 20377, I promise you we'll send you to the doors of those current non-voters, invite them into this election, and make sure that they're the margin of victory. You all ready to sign up? Get this done? All right. Gracias. So, it is so good to be here with you, for it to be warm enough to roll up our sleeves, or to show up in one of these sexy Beto for Texas t-shirts that I see some of you all wearing. We got in yesterday, and I got to go for a run this morning, and it was just absolutely gorgeous outside. And so good to see the people who were out, some who recognized me and stopped. It was all waves with 5 fingers, none with just one. It was perfect. You all are amazing, so kind. But this follows on a trip that we just had to a different part of the state. It happened to be my kids' spring break. So Amy and I put them in the van where we were traveling from Dallas to some of the smaller communities in Texas, places like Childress and Alney and Shamrock, where we happened to be as they were celebrating the 75th annual St. Patrick's Day Festival in the headquarters for Irish in the state of Texas, up there in Shamrock, Texas, in the Texoma area. We went to Dalhart in the Panhandle, down to Amarillo, to Lubbock, to San Angelo. Absolutely beautiful country. And we didn't allow it to deter us that they told us that these are Republican or red counties. What we say is, I don't know that you're red so much as you are currently non-voting. And I think when Democrats fear to tread and don't show up, then Republicans don't have to show up either. And the folks there are functionally unrepresented. So we're going to show up. And true to my kids' greatest dreams of spending their spring break on the road with their dad, giving the same speech in the same place, day after day, we showed up. And here are the things that we talked about. And they resonated everywhere we went. We talked about Texas being the place where the best jobs in America are being created today. We want to make sure that if you work full-time, you are earning a living wage, so you don't have to work a second or a third job or go to the 4th shift of the day. You're not reliant on public assistance, and you're able to pursue your potential. You are fulfilled in what you do when you wake up in the morning every day. That may be, for more people, more important than the wages that they get, just making sure that they know that they are making a difference. They found their purpose on this planet. You know, I feel like I've got that right now. Maybe you have it in your life. There is nothing better. That's what I want for my kids. It's what I want for your kids. It's what I want for everyone here in the state of Texas. And there's no reason that we should not be able to do that. I've been listening to the pipe fitters and the steel workers and the plumbers and the electricians, these good union women and men all across the state of Texas, like those in Beaumont who helped to secure our energy independence and were shut out of the refinery that they helped build for the purpose of more profits for these multinational corporations. Nonetheless, they persisted. They've been able to get back into those plants, get back to work, get back to producing the energy that we need in this state, and frankly, given what's going on in Europe right now, around the world. What if we built on their leadership and ensured that there were good union jobs everywhere in the state of Texas, and those union jobs were focused on expanding our energy leadership in wind, in solar, in geothermal, in making sure that we are taking the lead in the next generation of energy and also confronting climate change before it's too late and doing it right here in the state of Texas. High-paying jobs, high value, high skill, and they provide the purpose that we need. Or how about this? I cannot tell you how many nurses I have met who are coming off their second or third shift and show up to a meeting like this, again, probably for the beer, but they stay to talk to me, and they say, hey, Beto,
I don't love the beer. I love the alcohol.
if there is... When you listen to these nurses, here's what they're telling you. As more nurses leave the profession after 2 years of a pandemic in the state of Texas, then the nurses who remain are doing more work. They're working longer shifts. They're having to see more patients, and it's stretching them thinner and thinner and causing them to maybe think about leaving. We're 20,000 nurses short here in the state of Texas. What if we did this? What if we paid those nurses more to stay on the job? What if those nurses who took on tens of thousands of dollars of debt in order to have the privilege of taking care of us when we're sick, what if we wiped clean their debt so they could focus on staying in these in-demand professions? And what if we attracted and recruited and retained more of them here? I mean, that's a jobs plan that creates high wage, living wage, purposeful jobs that give people function in their lives and make all of our lives better as a result. This is what we do when we're focused on one another and not the corporations or our campaign donors. We create better jobs in the state of Texas. In those rural small communities, I also talked about public education. And listen, we love new school buildings and the latest technology and all the advancements that people are bringing to bear in our system of public ed, but nothing is more important than the school teacher or the counselor or the librarian or the nurse or the cafeteria worker or the school bus driver who literally makes that happen. So when we're in these communities, including this one right here, we need to remind one another that the school teacher in Texas on average makes $7,500 less than the United States school teacher on average. So just as a starter, why don't we pay those school teachers what they're really worth so that they don't have to work a second or third job? Why don't we treat them as the professionals that they are, cancel the STAR test so there's no more high pressure, high stakes in their lives, replace it with something that they actually designed, that ensures that we also have accountability, but that we get resources where they are most needed. I know from listening to these teachers and educators and from the parents of the school kids across this state, after 2 years of this pandemic, where we lost more than 80,000 of our fellow Texans, these kids have experienced trauma that none of us fully understand. Years of learning loss, losing their grandparents, their folks losing their jobs, that teacher in front of them, in that classroom as her colleagues leave by the thousands, is literally keeping those kiddos alive right now. And I want her to know that each and every one of us has her back, and we will when we win this race, and I'm their governor. We talk about We talk about something that's important in Houston, but I would argue even more important in rural Texas, currently represented by Republicans, and that is expanding Medicaid so that more people can see a doctor, so that we no longer bear the distinction of our largest inpatient mental health care facility being the Harris County Jail, just miles from where we are right now, because we brought in the tens of billions of dollars of federal money that was ours to begin with to expand access to care, to make sure that you can fill a prescription, that we no longer have our fellow Texans dying of diabetes, of curable cancers, of even the flu in the year of our Lord 2022. When we win this together, we're expanding Medicaid, bringing more than 1 million people onto the rolls. And the kicker, while we do this, we're going to lower your property taxes because that money's coming in. You no longer have to pay for uncompensated care. So look, when you go back to your home, when you go back to work on Monday, when you see your classmates back in school and they ask you, because they know that you were out here with us today, what's this O'Rourke guy all about? Say, look, I heard him talk about great jobs, world-class schools, and the ability to see a doctor. Whether you're Democrat, Republican, or independent, or currently a non-voter, that much we can agree on right now. And at a time that this state has never been more fractured, more divided, more defined by its differences and in how we can come together, this is the perfect contrast to the guy who holds the highest position of public trust right now. But if we're going to do these three things and so much more, we've got to get past his cruelty, his incompetence, and his corruption. And we've got to do it together. We've got to get past a guy in the highest position of power who we cannot trust to keep the power on for the people of Texas when they need it the most. A guy who would not force the gas sellers to make sure that they could keep us alive, and hundreds lost their lives in the process, while the sellers made $11 billion in illegal profits. And just one of them, whose company made more than $2 billion, turned around and wrote Greg Abbott a $1 million campaign contribution check. That might explain why he did not claw back those illegal profits and instead asked each and every single one of us to pay more in our utility bills every single month, on average $45 a month more. That is the Abbott tax. And we're not going to pay it once we defeat Abbott and get that money back and return it to the people of Texas. Y además, we're going to winterize the grid. We're going to connect ERCOT to the national grid so we can draw down power when we need it. We're going to do common sense, good things for the people of Texas. We've got to get past the governor who has denied every single woman in this state their ability to make their own decisions about their own lives. And lest anybody be confused into thinking that this is about being pro-life, this is about exerting power over the lives of the women in the state of Texas. We can and we should and we will do so much better. This state that now leads the developed world in the rate of maternal mortality because of this cruelty. Because as we close reproductive health care clinics, not only are we closing off the ability for a woman to access a legal abortion, her constitutional right, but try getting a cervical cancer screening in some of these communities, reproductive health care of any kind at all, or just seeing a doctor in the least insured state in the nation. When we're governor, we are going to make sure that every woman makes her own decisions about her own body, her own future, and her own health care every single time. And then, if you really want to talk about cruelty, let's look at the children of the state of Texas. This governor, I mean, stranger than fiction, you could not have cooked or dreamed this up on your own. Somehow he managed to do it. Those families of transgender children who have among the toughest struggles that any parent can imagine are now being targeted by this governor, accused of child abuse. And if that accusation is sustained as he sends in those investigators into their homes, into their schools, into their places of work, not only is that transgender child taken from their custody and care, and I cannot imagine a more loving household or set of parents than those who are helping their child navigate this incredibly challenging moment in their lives, but so is every other kid in that household. And this is happening at a time that we have 30,000 children in the foster care system, so many sleeping under the desks at CPS offices. 200 of them, we have found, have been trafficked for their bodies while in the custody and care of CPS. 23 have lost their lives in the last 2 years. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to work with Representative Ann Johnson, who's been a leader on this issue, to make sure that instead of targeting trans kids and their families, we help those kids in the foster care system and finally turn CPS around and make sure that we're there for the most vulnerable among us. We've got to do this. Y por último, perhaps the greatest attack of this governor on the people of Texas comes in the form of his attack on our democracy. For every veteran here, every woman, every man who's put their lives on the line for this country, not for the person in power, not for a political party, but for the Constitution, our way of life, and our ability to freely and fairly choose those who will represent us and the course and direction that our communities and our country will take. We are grateful for your service. And we're going to back that up by making sure that this anti-small d Democratic governor, who is trying to stop the people of this state from casting their ballots because he does not trust them, making this the toughest state in the nation in which to register or vote, and one of those great veterans, 95 years old, who literally was fighting fascism and defending democracy half a world away in 1944, had his vote by mail ballot rejected 3 times in this state. We're going to make sure when we win this race that every eligible citizen is able to freely cast their ballot. We don't care, no me importa, Republican, Democrat, Independent. We're going to make sure that this democracy works. So that's the task before us. We need to get Texas on to the right track, being known once again for the big, bold things that we can do together around jobs, around great schools, around being healthy and well enough to live to our full potential. We got to get past the cruelty, the incompetence, the corruption of this current governor, and it's going to be up to all of us to make that happen. There is no one, but no one, riding to the rescue to save us at this moment. This one is on you, it is on me, it is on each and every single one of us. And let me close with this. I mentioned that we lost to Ted Cruz by 216,000 votes in 2018. I mentioned that together we helped to produce the largest voter turnout in 2018 since 1970 in the state of Texas. Young people turned out at a rate 500% greater than the last midterm election. But I also told you earlier, there are 7 million who are locked out of this democracy in the state of Texas right now because of that voter suppression and intimidation that Greg Abbott has authored and signed. Now listen, look at those two numbers. 216,000 was our margin of defeat. There are 7 million people out there. And we know who they are. They live right here in Houston. And we know who they are. They're the ones who've been targeted for voter suppression and voter intimidation. The growth of the electorate in the state of Texas over the last 10 years, 95% has been people of color in communities just like this one in Harris. So here's what I'm laying on you right now. If we finish our beers, text Texas to that 5-digit code that I just shared with you earlier. Sign up for one of these volunteer canvas shifts to go knock on the doors of some of those 7 million here in Harris County. I promise you, not only will we be doing everything we can to fight the greatest attack on democracy, but by reaching those voters who've been disenfranchised before, we will bring them in, and it will be the margin of victory when we win this thing on the 8th of November, 2022. Thank you all for coming out. So grateful to be with you. Les agradezco. Two things. Conchita's going to make a quick announcement, and then we want to make sure that we take a few questions from anyone who might have one. So Conchita's going to get up. Cynthia's going to then take the mic. If you got a hand up, Cynthia's going to recognize you, and then we're going to make sure we get your questions in.
My deepest apologies to our elected officials. I did remember to say my name, but I forgot to acknowledge y'all. So I do want to take this time to acknowledge our Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Our hard-working state reps who challenged Greg Abbott and the rest of the crew and went to D.C. State Representative Jean Wu, State Representative Ann Johnson, State Representative Christina Hahn, State Representative Alma Allen, our Harris County Democrat Chair, Otis Evagara, our Dr. Candace Matthews with the Black Caucus. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you so much, Beto.
All right, did we miss anybody? I just want to make sure. Judge Englehart, right over here, folks. All right, I'm going to make sure we didn't miss anybody. Hold on real quick. Marilyn Burgess, District Clerk. Round of applause.
Coach Cam, HD 132.
Right, there we go. Thank you, Coach Cam. Did we miss anybody else? I do not want to miss anybody else. James Burnett, right over here. Okay, I think we got everybody now. I'm going to take a few questions, so if you all raise your hand, I will come to you.
Hi, my name is Aramis Miller, and I love what you do. I think you're absolutely fabulous. I met you in Austin one time. I love what you do. I keep up with Abbott all the time, and I saw this last week that he was talking about I guess illegals and how awful and terrible and scary they are. And I'm just wondering what your plan is for all those children that they separated.
Yeah. So this question is about what is happening in this state where we are connected to the rest of the world at our border with Mexico. And as you all know, this immigration system is not working today. It's not working today because we haven't updated it since 1986, when Ronald Reagan was the last president to oversee comprehensive immigration reform. Some of you here were not even born in 1986 when that happened. Since then, this country has faced a real challenge from those who want to come here to join family, those who want to come here and work jobs in the communities just like this in Houston, those who are fleeing unprecedented terror and brutality and death in their home countries, doing what any one of us would do faced with the same conditions. What else, I ask you, would compel you to send your 12 or your 10 or your 8-year-old daughter on a 2,000-mile journey, almost the length of this hemisphere, to arrive as a stranger in a strange land in the hopes that she's going to connect with a family member deeper in the interior? You do not do that for kicks. You don't do it to steal anybody's job or take anything from anyone else. You do it because you have no choice but to do that. Our laws should reflect those demands, our values. Make sure that anyone who is lawfully and orderly trying to ensure that they can claim asylum or refuge in this country is able to do that and is treated with the dignity and respect that they deserve as a human being. We got to make sure that we free up Border Patrol agents on the border to focus not on a humanitarian challenge, because we account for it in our laws, but those who do want to harm us by bringing illegal drugs or trafficking in human beings. I want to make sure that is the focus going forward. We should be able to do that. We should be able to lead the nation in being able to do that. But what's happening right now is a governor who, to your point, tries to stoke anxiety and fear about those who are coming here. He talks about invasions. He talks about Texans having the need to defend themselves and take matters into their own hands. Those were the words he used. Just days before, a gunman inspired by that language walked into a Walmart in El Paso, Texas in 2019 and murdered 23 people, claiming he was there to repel the invasion of Hispanics coming into this country. This governor has not only not fixed the challenge in the 7 years that he's been in office, where he's had the opportunity, he has made it worse each and every year, including deploying 10,000 members of the State Guard to become part of a solution in search of a problem, building this art installation wall at our border with Mexico that's not going to deter anybody from doing anything at all, and costing you and me $3 billion in the bargain. We are going to make sure that we get border policy right, that we honor those who want to come to this country legally and do it the right way, and improve our laws by taking the lead here in Texas. Thanks for asking.
All right, here's our next question. Hi, I'm Giselle Gutierrez, and I just want to know what your plan for DACA is, because I know you have declared that's illegal, and I know there's so many students who are scared of going to college because they can't continue with their DACA and all that. So I just want to know what your plan for that is, and I love your ideology when it comes to the CPS system, because it is a problem, a big problem, and that's something that to me has been, like, growing up over here, I've seen continuously been an issue with kids that I know, kids that I go to school with, and you see nobody help them because there is nothing that you can do for them, really. And then they leave their houses, and next thing you know, they live in the street, and it's not because they want to live in the street, but they were forced to live in the street because no one is helping them.
Thank you for asking these two questions about dreamers who were brought to this country at a very young age by their parents, who I mentioned earlier, made a really tough decision. No one who lives in Houston wants to leave Houston and go to another country, right? You love this community, you love this state, you love America, you want to stay here. That's how the people feel in Mexico and in Haiti and in El Salvador and the other countries from which they come. They leave, again, because they have no choice but to do that. But it's connected to your other question about child protective services and all these kids who are leaving the system more damaged than when they entered that system, when they were taken from their parents or their homes, maybe because that's the only choice we had in order to protect them. We're not taking care of them when they're in our custody and care. And listen to this perverse irony. You've got the governor trying to scare you about pornography in our school libraries right now. And his own CPS agency is contracting with private providers who are making child porn of those foster care kids who are in their custody right now. Ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't get more fucked up than that. And that's happening right now in the state of Texas. And maybe it's because those kids in foster care, those dreamers who are contributing far more than they will ever take from the state of Texas, they don't have lobbyists, they don't make campaign contributions, they're not the billionaire donors who are sustaining this governor's campaign of cruelty on the people of Texas right now. But I'll tell you this, when we win this together with, for, and by the people of Texas, we're gonna be there for every single one of us, including those kids in CPS, including those dreamers, about whom we will speak with pride and lead to make sure that you are legal permanently here in this country. Thanks for being here.
Here we go, next question right here.
Yes, hi Beto. My name is Charisma. I worked with you on your 2018 Senate campaign, and I've been with you, running with you, even with your presidential campaign. So I'm standing with you strong. I'm a recent graduate of Texas Southern University, and thank you. So I got to meet you at Texas Southern University, and I want to know, what will you do more for HBCU students, just because of the fact that we are underrepresented and underfunded, and it's really not much representation coming to us, and letting the students know that we are supported and we are backed up, especially going into corporate America. But how will you help us?
Charisma, thank you for being here. And we need to update that Beto for Senate shirt that you've got. So Cynthia, if you can make sure we get a Texas shirt going. So you are a case in point. Historically black colleges in the state of Texas provide extraordinary value for all of the people of the state of Texas. When we look at the cost-benefit analysis of public taxpayer dollar going in, and then what comes out in terms of benefit and productivity and taxes paid back into the state of Texas, it's harder to find a better value than the HBCUs here. That could be TSU, it could be Prairie View A&M, Paul Quinn College, it could be Wiley up in Marshall, Texas, which has produced so many extraordinary civil rights and voting rights leaders, on top of the mathematicians and scientists and others who have engineered so much of the success, financial and otherwise, that we have seen in this state. But those HBCUs are funded at a fraction of our flagship universities like the University of Texas at Austin. And listen, we do not begrudge the Longhorns a single thing, but they have the largest public endowment of any public university in the United States of America. How about some of that money going to the HBCUs here in Houston and in other communities across the state? Let's make sure that education is affordable to anyone who wants to pursue it, because we know that they are more likely then to be able to fully realize their potential and their promise and that purpose that I spoke about at the beginning, for which we all crave even more than a paycheck. I want to make sure that I'm rising to my full potential. I want to make sure that you and every other Texan is as well. So let's make sure that we fully fund HBCUs going forward. Thank you. Thanks for asking.
All right, right behind you, Beto. Right here. The other side behind you. Right here.
There we go.
Hey, Beto, I'm Dr. Matthews. I'm the vice chair for the Texas Black Caucus and also chair for Rainbow Push Coalition under Reverend Jesse Jackson. So the question that I have for you deals with foster care. Clearly, we have a governor who is pretty much trying to sweep under the rug what has happened to those children in the refuge over in Bastrop. We clearly have minority providers that also have businesses that have dealing with foster kids. There has been a systemic racism that is happening within both agencies, HHSC and CPS. Because if that would have been my business or someone that looked like me, they would have closed the business right then and there. Those children would not have stayed there for 70 days and everyone would have been indicted. What are we going to do to make a level playing field across the board and that everyone across the state of Texas is being evaluated equally and that we do not fail these children?
Thank you for asking this. Listen, going back to the very beginning of this country and the genius of America, the promise was equal protection under the law. And no matter what the difference is between us, we're all going to be treated the same. Now, to be clear, this country has never lived up to that promise, but it's still our foundation. It still inspires us. It's still the thing to which we aspire. So to your question about CPS, you're absolutely right. This private agency that the state of Texas, that means all of us, we are the state of Texas, through our governor, contracted with, instead of keeping it within the custody and care of CPS caseworkers who themselves are overworked and overburdened and underpaid. I want to make sure we do better for them before we privatize child care in this community for those in foster care. This place in Bastrop County is accused of taking in children who had been trafficked for their bodies, 12, 13, 15-year-old girls rented out to the people in their communities. We take them in, send them to a private facility where the accusation is then made that they are being trafficked and rented out for their bodies again. Now, this should alarm all of us, and I think it does, but the governor sends in the Texas Rangers, and in a matter of days, they say, folks, nothing to see here. No problem whatsoever. And then news escapes that they're beginning to make these videos and pornographic films of these children who again are under the care of the state through this private contractor. We want real answers. We want real transparency. We want real accountability. And when we talk about rule of law and following the law right now, I want to make sure that the full force and weight of the law in Texas is brought down on those who abuse these girls who are in our custody and care. Whatever the differences between us, we got to make sure there is justice for every single one of us. Thank you for asking. Appreciate it.
I'm to your slight right, and I'm going to be, here we go, and I'm going to try to get as many as I can.
Hi, my name is Natalie Herpin. Thank you so much for coming out to Spring Branch specifically. I'm one of the directors of a local PAC that works with the school district here, Families for Every Child. And what we have seen is it coming from the highest levels at Texas that they are targeting our children. They are talking about, as you said, books. They are talking about fringe issues. We're not seeing the conversation happening about teacher attrition or learning loss or the important things. We are seeing this happen and polarizing our community. How can you help from the top down to make awareness for that issue?
We talked about what teachers are laboring under after 2 years of the pandemic, after maybe a year and a half of trying to connect with these kids on Zoom, worrying about those kids who do not show up on the Zoom because maybe they don't have an internet connection or a device at home, or maybe something has happened and maybe they themselves are now in CPS custody and care. I mentioned this earlier. Before we're teaching reading and writing and arithmetic, those teachers are keeping those kids alive. And from every educator I've met, that is their #1 priority. That is now happening as thousands of teachers are leaving the profession. So if you had a classroom of 24, that may be 36, that may be 50, that may be more. You may have doubled your workload as you're working under tougher conditions with kids who need more from us. And so you ask what we can do. Even before we win this race, let us make sure that we fully have the backs of those teachers at a time that they're being attacked by their governor, who's asking them to turn in the parents of the transgender kids in their classroom, who's trying to scare them from teaching the full, true history of the state of Texas, every community and person in the state of Texas. Teachers who are asked to perform to this high-stakes, high-pressure, standardized test that in no way effectively measures their effort or the potential in the kid who's in front of them right now. I want to make sure that we're treating them as the professionals that they really are. The folks who've taken on student loan debt for the privilege of teaching our kids right now under these incredibly difficult conditions. So yes, teacher pay is important. Yes, making sure that we replace the STAR test with something that actually is useful for those in the classroom. Yes, getting some of the paperwork and the bureaucracy out of their way. Yes, listening to those teachers. So we ask them, what is it going to take to keep you in the classroom? Because we literally cannot afford to lose you right now, and honoring them in every single way that we can. I think that's the only way that we're going to keep those that we have, bring more in, and then respect those who've already left the profession after decades of service by having a cost of living adjustment every single year of TRS going forward. So these are some things that we can do.
All right, here we go.
Hey, my name is Jerry. I'm transgender. I don't want to be transgender. I was born that way. But I'll be damned if I will stand by and allow our state government to legislate discrimination against transgender people. My question to you is simply this. I know you've been on the road and very busy. Are you aware that just 2 days ago, the Department of Justice sent a letter to every attorney general in the country, basically warning them that legislating discrimination against transgender people is a violation of the Constitution. I have a copy of this 4-page letter for you, and I have another copy for the media, whoever would like it. But everybody needs to know what our current Department of Justice is doing for us. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you for sharing that with us. We want the DOJ to do their job, and I'm glad to hear that it looks like they're starting to. But even more, this one's on us, and we've got to win this election, right? We've got to win this election to make it right for everybody in Texas.
This is going to be our last question.
Last but not least, my name is Jay Craker. I've been a caregiver for my first and only wife, Sue, for a long time. I started the Empowered Caregiver Network nonprofit. We've talked about healthcare, we've talked about the challenges of the frontline people serving us in our healthcare industry. What can we do for those who are shouldering a lot of the cost of the healthcare system without seeing anything back in return? Thank you.
It's a great question. So I'm gonna do my best to repeat the essence of it. For those who are caring for loved ones and family members at home, you may have a medically complex child who requires constant attention and literally lifting him or her out of a chair and into their bed and then massaging their lungs to make sure that you keep them alive and they can actually breathe. And you're doing that many times over the course of the day. And you're doing that because you love that person more than you love anything on this planet or in your life, and you'll do everything you can. But it also means that you're not able to finish your education. If there's still more learning to do, you can't go in to another job and make a paycheck. And you may financially not be able to sustain this for much longer. In addition, we have those who we pay to provide this kind of care who are making just a little bit more than a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour in this state. If we want to really free everyone up to live to their full potential, if we want folks to be able to lead independent lives in their homes instead of being institutionalized, we're going to have to invest in their care. And yes, that means increasing the ability to support and pay those who are family members in those homes for taking care of other family members. It may be expensive, it's a lot cheaper than sending them to an institution and losing the value of their being able to stay in their homes with their families and in their communities. We've got to pay those caregivers who come in for $8-9 an hour and are working in house after house, also picking up people, doing literally back-breaking work to keep them alive and make sure that they are paid a true living wage as well. We've got to invest in every single one of us. Listen, there is a party that once described themselves as pro-life. We now understand that at best they are pro-birth, but more likely they are pro-controlling the lives of women. It is time for us to claim this mantle. We are pro everybody's lives, all the way through your life, from birth until your last day. And we're going to make sure that we, the people of Texas, are there for you. Thank you all for coming out. Very, very grateful to you. Adios. Gracias.
All right, folks, couple of announcements. If you'd like to stay to take a picture, the line will start over here. We'd be very happy to take a picture with everybody. Christian Menifee is here in the house, over here. Ladies and gentlemen, please give him a round of applause. Thank you for being here, Christian. All right, and we have one more announcement.
Hi, if you Spring Branch people don't know it, we have a club. It's called the Spring Branch Democrats. Yes, and if you're not a member, please